Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a concept in economics called rent seeking, whereby those with political power and influence go to those in government and seek special benefits at the expense of everyone else. Today's student loan racket, and it is a racket, I think is a powerful example of rent seeking. The people who are losing are the working men and women of this country. And they're losing on multiple fronts. Number one, they're losing because the cost of education is skyrocketing. And the cost of education skyrocketing is a direct result of policies the federal government has put in place. We've heard the stats today about the cost of education. Today, the cost of college tuition is 31 times more than it was in 1970. We've seen skyrocketing costs. In 1985, the cost of tuition, fees, room and board was $3,859 a year at a public university and $9,228 a year at a private four-year university. By 2018, those numbers had skyrocketed to $20,598 per year at a public four-year university and $44,662 a year at a private four-year university. I can tell you in families that makes a real difference. In 1957, my dad came from Cuba to come to America to go to school. He came to Austin to go to the University of Texas. His first job was making 50 cents an hour as a dishwasher. And working as a dishwasher, he was able to pay his way through school. You can't do that anymore. The fees have skyrocketed. By the time I went to school, when I came out of college and law school, I had to take student loans. I had about $100,000 of student loans when I came out of law school. It took over a decade to pay off those student loans. But the racket we have right now involves the federal government subsidizing unlimited student loans, which then sets up universities to jack up tuition and jack up costs over and over and over and over again. And the racket gets even worse because we saw in recent years, led by congressional Democrats, the federal government nationalize the student loan industry. So now it's the federal government that is loaning the money, that is directly subsidizing this massive debt burden and driving the cost through the roof. It's resulting in, at universities, people on the staff and administration getting paid six-figure sums not to teach. Not to teach, but to engage in administration. Take a university like the University of Michigan. University of Michigan right now, you can expect, an in-state student can expect to spend $130,000 during 4 years at the University of Michigan. An out-of-state student can expect to spend about $300,000 at the University of Michigan. Why is it so expensive? Well, I'll tell you, there's massive overhead. For example, Michigan has right now, the University of Michigan, has 163 diversity and inclusion employees whose job it is to be administrative overhead. To put that in perspective, it has 2.3 diversity and inclusion officers for every one member of the history faculty. Our universities don't teach anymore. They are instead paid sinecures for people who go and work for the government. And by the way, they have become among the biggest donors to Democrats. It is striking just how many employees of public universities are massive Democratic donors to each of the senators up here. There's a chart I tweeted out some time ago comparing the top donors to Donald Trump to the top donors of Joe Biden. Strikingly enough, among the top donors to Joe Biden were universities and big tech. In fact, according to this bubble chart, the biggest group of donors for Joe Biden were employees of the University of California. They actually more than employees of Google, which was right behind, more than Amazon. Big education supports Democrats. And what are Democrats now saying? We're going to loan to massive loans to you. We're going to drive up the cost. And now we're going to forgive that debt, which shifts all the cost to the taxpayers. The top fifth of households holds $3 in student loan for every $1 held by the bottom fifth. What Democrats are now proposing to benefit the universities and keep jacking up costs is to transfer money from working men and women, the top 25% of households with incomes above $173,000, hold 34% of outstanding student loan debts, and yet Democrats are proposing a massive wealth transfer away from working men and women. These are policies that don't make sense. These are policies, I believe, that are rent-seeking, and they're hurting the working men and women.